Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the MSI GTX780 Lightning. Now, I'm making this, it's a bit complicated. The card arrived yesterday at 3 PM in the afternoon. The NDA was this morning at 10 AM, so I got all the testing done and got the write-up done, and I'm making the video a bit later. Normally I kind of do it the other way around, but I wanted to get the main review up and done so that this video can then link into it, which brings me on rather splendidly to, if you would like to look at the graphs and all the testing and compare it with all the other cards that we've done, you can click the review link and that will take you to the main review link on OC3D, and that will obviously give you our big list of our graphs and comparisons. And to be fair, I have tried to bring those graphs into the video, and unless you actually do watch the videos in 1080p and you blow them up, they really don't work when you run them at the lower resolutions. It gets kind of complicated to be able to see, you know, because we've not got one or two graphics cards in there. We're talking about 15, 20 graphics cards in there as a comparison. So it really does work better if you click the link and fire on in. Anyway, right, what we're going to do is I've got the test rig here at the minute, but we're going to bring you in for a closer look around the card. The box itself isn't really that special. In fact, I'll show you the box now and it will save me something that we don't have to do in a minute. You kind of get the box like this, and it's got MSI Lightning written on it in a couple of places. The card comes in the top opening bit, and then there's a drawer at the bottom, and in there you've got some 6 to 8 pin PCI Express power converters, which, to be fair, if you need those, you need your edge shoot, and if you've bought this card you need to get a better power supply. You've got some voltage kind of connector points, your driver CD in there, just a little, you know, normal things, nothing really out of the ordinary, other than there's a LN2 bracket, so if you were to take the heatsink off, there's another bracket that you can put on. But anyway, what we're going to do is we'll have a look at the card itself, all naked, all lovely, jubbly, all that kind of stuff. Then what we'll do is I'll bring you in, I'll show you the fan software, some of the extra bits that will appear in Afterburner if you use this card, and then we'll break into you know, a conclusion and a chat about all our results and everything as well. So yeah, it's time for me now to be quiet, and I will bring you in for a good look at the card. But I need to get the remote out of my pocket so I can tell you to go away. Okay then, peeps, so we'll have a closer look at the card, and we'll go on to through some of the specs and everything as well while we look at it. Now, one of the things, because I posted some photos up before the NDA was lifted about the 3 fans, and a lot of people were not keen on the smaller yellow fan in the middle. Now, one thing I can say is, even though that is in the middle, and obviously the other ones look like they're blowing down through the heatsink and everything, from what I've seen, it's not really doing very much, because it's pretty much blocked off from blowing down onto the rest of the PCB and everything. And the actual bit of heatsink that's there is not actually really in contact with anything either. So they've obviously put it there for a reason, but to be honest, as you can see, this end fan, you can see it's all blowing over all the power bits, and this one's actually down on the vapor chamber for the GPU and everything that's there. But this it's just kind of floating in the middle of nowhere, and I'm with the majority of the people that have posted about that different size fan. Don't really like it, and it is noticeably noisier than the other two as well in the testing. When you turn it up, it does make a little bit of a difference to the PWMs, and all the power bits underneath, which it's meant to, but not a massive amount. You can still get pretty good cooling if you leave this on stock and turn these ones up. The bits that these are meant to cool, this single fan's meant to cool, these do still cool it as well, and all of the temperatures drop. So it's a little bit of a weird one. But anyway, so we have a look around. Something I will say straight off the bat is I don't think, considering it's their black and yellow kind of overclocking line. I don't think there's enough yellow on it. The fan you can't really see, and I do feel like these yellow bits needed to be kind of all the way down the PCB, and there's nothing yellow on the back. In fact, these LEDs, as I will show you in a minute, these all light up blue, so it does get kind of confusing. Now, one thing I will say, right, so we've got the 3 fans. The actual heatsink that's underneath is it's all copper, but then it's nickel plated. There's 8 heat pipes in total, all hidden underneath this. I don't want to take the card apart. MSI have asked me not to with this one, which is kind of a strange one for them, but it's the only one in the UK for the press. So they've asked me to be a little bit extra kind to it. But it's nickel plated, copper base, and then there's also there's 7 heat pipes, but they're 8mm thick underneath. So we've done that. Now you've got the back plate, and then you've also got, if you have a look along here, you can see that there's a support plate on the inside, and that is cooling the memory and some of the VRMs and the MOSFETs and stuff. And essentially this plate and the back plate are all bolted together, and there's 8 mounting points, but also the back plate is pretty damn close on the back of the card, and they're saying that this not only provides support but also helps cool the PCB. Now, I've not taken it off, but there are quite a few contact points on it, so a lot of the bits that create heat do touch, but so these bits, that are exposed don't. So I'm not sure whether they don't seem to get massively hot, but you'd think that these would be being touched by the heatsink as well, so it could sap even more heat off. And in our motherboard, when we tested it, it did still seem to kind of droop a bit. Now, the card was perfectly straight, so it was probably just the bolting in the back, and you'll see when it's in the rig. You will need to do these up really, really tight, and when you do them up, you can straighten the card out. So it's not the card that's warping when you have a look. It's actually just, it's kind of shifting the slot, because it is, fairly heavy. Now, this light does change, and it's meant to go green when it's on 2D or low, and then it goes blue with light gaming, and then it goes red when it's hardcore gaming or overclocking, and it's meant to be up to 150 watt, it's meant to be green, 150 watt to 200 watts meant to be blue, and then over 210 watt it's meant to be red. And I have to admit, well, the colours I'll show you in a little bit, but I've never seen it go green. I've seen blue very, very quickly, and the red is more like orange. But anyway, now while we're here, you can see we've got a button here. This is in the original mode. It's got 2 BIOSes. Now, as I'll show you again in a little bit, the original mode, that's where the overclock is. 980 megahertz on the core, and 1500 megahertz on the memory. And it's what they're saying with the settings in this. It's 200 watt core power limit, 240 amps current power limit, 250 watt TDP limit, and it's got the factory overclock in it. But if you switch it to LN2 mode, the overclock goes, and it goes back down to, I think it's 836 megahertz. So with the offset, you'd obviously have to add a lot more onto your offset when you go into Afterburner. But it's got a 900 watt core power limit, 800 amps current limit, and then the TDP limit is just got XXX watts, so it's probably just completely unrestricted. I have to admit, with this card on air cooling, I didn't need the LN2 mode. I could hit the limits of the core in the normal mode, but obviously if you're going to be running LN2 and extra volts and really raping the back end out of this thing, obviously you'll need that to go over there, but you'll get nowhere near it with air and possibly even water cooling. And to be fair, if you've got it in LN2 mode, then you're not really going to be caring about the longevity of your card. You're just going to be trying to get mega benchmarks. Around the back, you've got a full size display port, HDMI, and then you've got your 2 DVIs. They're all gold plated as well. You've got the little grill here, but to be fair, you don't get any heat coming out of this at all during the testing. It does just all whiz out the side of all outside the card. So if you plan on running this in a case, please do keep in mind that you are going to need to have, you know, pretty good airflow flowing through there. 2 8-pin power rather than a 6 and an 8 as you would normally get on the normal 780. You've got your voltage checkpoints here as well. Now, one thing I will say is it's a custom PCB, and they've got lots of the military class 4 bits in this. So you've got high C caps, new SFC chokes, copper MOSFETs, Dr. MOS 4, dark solid caps. It's full of it. They've most of the overclocking for the GPU and the memory the power doesn't come from the PCI Express. It all comes from the 8-pin. They've spent a lot of time and money making sure that it's essentially pulling the power from the PCI Express connectors rather than the motherboard. So it really has been built for stability. There's 3 temperature probes on there. You've got one for the GPU, one for the PCB, and one for the memory. You've also got voltage options separately for the memory, the GPU, and what they're calling their auxiliary voltage. They've spent, just like I said, they've just spent a lot of time making sure everything's perfect. Talking about power phases, it's got 20 power phases in total. It's 16 plus 3 plus 1. I'm pretty sure the 16 is the GPU, the 3 is the memory, and the 1's, I can't remember what the 1's for, the auxiliary other one. But anyway, we've made a rather lengthy bit just having a look at the card itself and took on some of the settings. What we'll do now is we'll have a look at it in the rig, so you can see it in there. I'll show you the lights, and then we'll move on to show you the extra settings that will appear in Afterburner, talk about the offset clocking, and then also the GPU Boost 2 overclocking, which obviously the card will do itself. So whatever you set the offset to, it will go up even further from that anyway, which is something a lot of people don't realise, and I'll show you how to check that yourself at home in really easy ways that you can double check everything. But anyway, I'm going to shush and let's get on and actually see this card in the rig. Okay then peeps, rig we are using today is the same that we use in all of the graphics card reviews. It's in a 900D at the moment. Yes, that bit does change, but the actual base bits don't. We've got a Rampage 4 Extreme in there, 16GB of 2133 Corsair Platinum. Then we have there's a 3960X in there running at 4.6 GHz. We've got an AX1200i. We've got the GTX240 GTX. Yeah, anyway, we've got a 240GB Corsair solid state drive in there. We've got the H100i in the roof in push-pull with SP120 quiet additions. You can see the temperature monitor that I've got in there. We do, when we run the tests, run with the door on, but it's just so that I've got an ambient temperature, so I can gauge temperatures with the cards. But it's a little bit more difficult with the NVIDIA cards nowadays, where we've got the GPU Boost 2, that they pretty much just run at 80 degrees unless you change it manually yourself. So the actual performance of the cooler doesn't really matter as much with these anymore, because they just push themselves to the thermal limit that you set to. We have got a 2560 by 1440 Asus screen for when we do the larger res stuff. But anyway, something I will show you. I'm just going to stop the camera quickly, and I want to show you the blue lights on the card that I spoke about previously. Okay then, so as I said to you about previously, we've got the blue on the back here, the MSI logo. We've got blue up here, and there are some blue ones up here when it goes under load as well. But also we've got the Lightning does change as well. It would be easier if I did this at night, but that isn't lit up at the minute. But what I will do is I'm just going to start Heaven in the background just so that I can show you, and I'm going to try and stand in the way of this. This still hasn't lit up, but watch all these light up in a sec. It is just, I should have opened the quicker one. Right, there we go, boom. And you can see this is now lit up as well. Now I have to say, this is meant to be red. but unless it's in perfect darkness, it looks orange pretty much all the time. And if you have any light in your rig whatsoever, this is going to look like an orangey colour. It doesn't even when it is in perfect darkness, I have to admit, it's not, even then, it's not very red at all. The colours, as I've said, are meant to be green, blue, and then the red colour. I've yet to see green. I've had blue flash up very quickly. And again, I'm very confused as to why they still use the blue and the yellow. I think I would much have preferred these lights to have been white inside the rig, so that it would actually end up adding, you know, a little bit of extra lighting inside the case rather than them being blue. It's a confusing one really, because I don't really think that the blue and the yellow really work that well together. It is a personal preference thing, so I'm just kind of saying in my mind, but these colours are far too soft. And I do think if we've got changing colours, as I've said with the Matrix in the past, I think there should be an option that we can manually set these as well. Yeah, you can have them set to load or temperature or whatever, but I think you should also be able to manually set them so that you can tie them into the colour of your rig. You've got these blue on the top, it would be nice to just maybe be able to manually set that to blue, or maybe you would prefer it just to be white, or maybe you would prefer it to be yellow. There's bloody RGBs in there anyway, so you know, why don't we just give us the option to be able to change it manually. And this kind of, the light inside of it is a bugbear with me, and it always has been with the blue lit up Lightning cards, and I just see it as being a little bit of a shame really. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and I will show you Afterburner and the overclocking and the settings like that. Right then peeps, moving on to Afterburner and the new MSI fan control. I've got GPU-Z open on this side, and I've got one open for just the graphics card, and I've got another one open for sensors, but I will talk to you about that in a second. Now, right, Afterburner. One of the things I said to you about before is the triple voltage changing options that we've got, and if we click on this, you can see you've got the little tab on this side. If you click on that, you'll see it opens more options, and we've got options to change the core voltage, which we could see before in millivolts, but then also memory voltage and auxiliary voltage. So you've got those options. If you click this one here, this is where you can change the power limit percentage and the temperature tie-in, and you can have them linked, and you can prioritize which one you want. That's pretty standard NVIDIA stuff, to be fair. Let me just reset that and get rid of that. Right, and then we've also got down here the core clock. This is an offset, so when you change it, it's above the normal clock, and the same with the memory. Now over here, if you can just about see, you've got a core clock of 980 megahertz. Now that's the normal BIOS megahertz, you know, like the overclock that it comes with. If you put that into LN2 mode, it actually goes down to 800, and I think it's 836, which is the standard 780 reference clock. So that's something to be aware of. So for argument's sake, if you were to run an overclock in the standard mode of 175, if you were then to put it into the LN2 mode, you then need to be putting in, I think it works out at 292, because there's a lot of difference there. Now you still get the same end clock, it's just because obviously you're starting a lot lower on the other one. So we've done that. We've covered these. You've also got a lot more temperature points here. You've got the GPU temperature, PCB temperature, memory temperature, and the VRM temperature. And those points do kind of link into the fan control, because this one is meant to be for the like the main GPU. This one is meant to be for like the power, and then this one's meant to be for like the MOSFETs and the PWMs. But it's kind of weird because this fan is actually pretty much covered up by the heatsink, and there's no direct path down for any of it, and it doesn't actually contact with anything either. So this fan, and through the tests that I've done, altering the speed of this fan hasn't really made a massive amount of difference to the PWM temperature up here, which is meant to change. And you've got another thing is, if you change fan 1, which is, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Fan 1 and 3 are linked. The only separate one is this second one. And again, I've not really noticed, you know, a massive amount of difference between actually really playing about with this one that much. And there's a fair amount of airflow from the other two. Obviously, you know, you may get a little bit of difference there. But something else that I have noticed, and this is something that, considering these are both bits of MSI software, I found quite annoying. So if we, the fan speed on here, if you were to manually set it, it changes 1 and 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to take auto off, and we're going to change it just a little bit up, and those two spin up. So we've manually set the fans. But then if we go into Afterburner and we take it off of auto and apply, actually hit apply that is, Afterburner will then override this. So if you're using both of the programs at the same time, you're constantly having to make sure that each one is set to the same thing, because otherwise it will override it. And also, if you get a driver failure or one of your benchmarks fails or something, you know, something crashes, Afterburner will obviously, everything goes back to stock, and it's the same with these two. It does get very confusing the first few times you do it. So I wish that basically if these two programs really spoke to each other a little bit better. So if you change one, it automatically gets changed and set in the other one. Now, one thing I am going to do is just show you something quickly, because obviously the overclocks that we used in the review, you need to remember the silicon lottery. You need to work through and see your own kind of overclocks that you can get. But I want to show you with GPU boost. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wang this up to 100 and, what's it got to? 109, which is 109 degrees, and it will get there as well. And then, so it's 109%, sorry. And then temp limit is 95. Sorry, I got them the wrong way round. So we've done that, and then what we're going to do is going to close that back down again. And the core clock, we're just going to change just a small amount. We're just going to change by 100. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit apply. Now, over on GPU-Z, you can see we've got default clock. It's gone from 980 to 1080. Now the reason why I'm showing you this is just down below here. If you have a look in the sensors setting here, we've got GPU core clock and GPU memory clock. Now what I've done is I've set this to save the maximum reading, and so basically what's going to happen when we run a benchmark, it won't just go to 1080 because that's an offset. And then GPU Boost 2 will actually push it a little bit further than that. So in fact, what I'm going to do, just to make it easier, I'm going to make that 1020. Apply. So then we've got this at 1100 then. So there we go, 1100. It's going to make it a lot easier for us to be able to calculate how much further GPU Boost will push it. So we've done that. I'm now going to run, I'm going to let Unigine loop for a little bit, and I'll start it while you're here. I'm just going to run, oh, it's actually on the absolute maxed out 2560. But I'm just going to let that run. We're going to let that run for a little minute. It won't be long because it doesn't need long. And then we'll come back and I will show you how much further GPU Boost 2 will have pushed it, just so that you can see the difference and why you need to look at both of those versions of GPU-Z. Okay then peeps, first thing, you can see the temperatures are starting to come down on this side, although the fans have dropped right off already. You can see the GPU temperature coming right down there. Now we can see still here 980 megahertz stock, 1100 megahertz as the offset clock, because we added 120 to it. But if we have a look here, GPU core clock, we set it to go to maximum, and the maximum it's actually gone to is 1241. Which means it's added itself another 141 megahertz on top of our boost clock. We didn't change the fan settings or anything like that, it's just done that itself. One thing we can see is the temperature actually went to 83 degrees C, although we had it set to, I think it was 95, so it's only gone up to 83 degrees C here. So that was one of the things I did want to point out to you, the difference between the clock that you set and then the GPU boost clock as well. And that's why these sensors bits are a really good thing to keep an eye on. And you can just open GPU-Z and then literally click on it again, open a second one, and you get your, you can just go to the sensors and you can click GPU core clock here, and you just go down and select show highest reading. You run your tests, play your game or whatever, and it will log it all for you as well. And I found it a really handy way to be able to keep an eye on things. So what we will do is we're just going to, we don't need this now. Well, we'll need it in a minute, but we'll open it back up again so we're going to go reset. Now I'm just going to show you something really quickly as the difference between what the overclock can make. Now we've got 3D Mark. Now obviously 3D Mark Firestrike Extreme. We want something really strenuous so that we can see the difference between stock and then overclock. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run Firestrike Extreme. Now I'm doing it live on the camera for you. I'm not going to show you all of it, but it's just so that you can see the two results. So I'm just going to let that run and I will bring you back when it's finished the test. Okay then, so at the end of that run we got 4,703. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm quite renowned, I don't like to hand my overclock settings out because of the silicon lottery, and every GPU can be wildly different. So I don't want you to have my settings and then yours not be as good, and then you complain to like the retailer or whatever, because obviously you can't really complain about overclocking. But at the same time, if you use my settings, yours might be significantly better than mine, and you might actually be not getting as much out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the card up for my overclock, and then we're going to run this again, and I will cut you in just so that you can see it live switch into the result. But I will be back with that for you shortly. Okay then, so it's just going to start the combined test. We have got the fans running on 100% in case you're wondering what the microphone is picking up. This is a really demanding test as well. At the bottom of the screen, if you run it on 1080, you'll see it's just flicking between 10 and 11 frames a second. Oh, we got 12! But I wanted you to see the score actually coming up now as it's going to. Before we had 4,703. 5,285. Now, a 5,000 score on 3D Mark Firestrike Extreme for a single card is epic. We're probably even, I mean, the graphics score and the physics score and everything, and we've only got a 4.6 gigahertz overclock and a 3960X as well. That is a pretty damn healthy score. Now I'm just going to turn the fans down just so that you can see, although it says it just jumps instantly down to 20%, they do spin down gradually. We run 100% just to make sure that it would stay 100% stable through the test. Obviously I think there are water blocks on the cards. It wouldn't matter too much, you know, with the if you had a water block on there. But the running the extra volts and the overclock and everything does obviously produce extra heat. So by having the fans up, it does keep things more stable. You probably could find a sweet spot where you could set up user fan profiles and stuff like that, because obviously games aren't going to push it as hard as some of the benchmarks do. But you may not be able to get the sort of clocks that we have, but then to be usable in your main rig if you're going to keep it on air cooling, because obviously it is still an extreme card, and for an extreme clock with the, you know, with extra volts and everything, you do still need to tame that heat and keep it cool to keep it stable. But what we're going to do now, we've done that. Obviously click the link if you want to go and see the full review with all the benchmarks and all the comparisons. That is the best place to go so that you can see everything. We're just skimming over the main bits here, otherwise this video would be an hour and a half long. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on, and we're going to go into a pretty in-depth conclusion, and yeah, we'll move on from there. Right then, peeps, moving on to the conclusion and all that kind of malarkey. Right at the very beginning, as we always do, we'll tell you the award, and we're going to give it a gold award, and I will tell you why. Price. When I asked MSI today, they said it was going to be retailing at 590 GBP, including VAT. And I did have to question them about that price, because I was like, really? That's not that much more than a reference one. And they were like, no, 590 quid. Obviously, some of the retailers may add their own little extra bit on, and it may creep over that £600 mark. But I still think that's 600 quid, say, for argument's sake, would still be a really good price for this card. Now, the Lightnings in the past have always been probably more expensive than they would have been this time, as in a percentage over what the original reference price would have been. You do get the custom PCB, the custom cooler, all the extra fandango with all the different, MOSFETs and military class 4, all that kind of stuff on there as well. And my only real bugbears with this card would be the lighting and the blue. The rest of it I actually really like. I'm still saying that I'm disappointed there's not more yellow on the side, because when you drop this into one of the X power boards and then maybe use the Navi SSD and RAM and stuff on there, if you're just going for aesthetics, it all does kind of work and look really nice. But with this, one thing I will say, as a gut feeling, I'm not 100% sure, because with the GPU Boost 2, everyone said, or kind of leant towards the idea that if you water cooled it, it would be much better than air cooling, and I've kind of proven that was not the case. And when you run the fans at 100%, you can kind of get the sort of overclocks that you would do with water cooling anyway. Obviously, water cooling temps will keep the temperatures much lower, but you kind of hit the silicon threshold. You can hit the silicon threshold with both. The only thing with water cooling is it does keep the temps much lower, which is obviously better for the card in long term. With this, I would probably say I think you could probably get a little bit more out of it if you did have it on water. I'm not going to say a lot, but I reckon you could definitely get that little bit more. We would be talking about pushing voltages more and stuff like that, but I think we probably could get a little bit more from it. I reckon it's one of the few cards I've looked at from the NVIDIA range and gone and had that real distinct kind of gut feeling. I reckon I could probably get a bit extra from this. So I'm hoping that a few of the places will pick the the water cooling, will make a water cooling block for it. But one thing that you do need to realise as a consumer, to make a water cooling block for a limited card like this, the price is going to probably be pretty high, because they're not going to be able to sell that many of them. A reference block, you've obviously got a much wider market of customers that you can sell them to, because you'll be selling them to people that have bought from all of the brands. Whereas with this, you're limiting it to just people that have bought the Lightning, because the Lightning is, the PCB is different to everything else. So if you are thinking about water cooling it, be prepared for that block to be expensive. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing blocks that are like 90, 100, 110 pounds for just the water block. But obviously that will bring you, slightly better aesthetics maybe, but also it's going to bring you much lower temp. So if you are really looking for that, that overclocking side of it, it probably will get you that little bit better. Another thing is, with that overclocking side of it, it does kind of get to the point where, it's built for being able to be absolutely ravaged with LN2 and DICE and absolutely raped. But unlike the kind of confusion and stuff with like the Haswell motherboards, we all know about my thoughts on the prices that, when a Haswell board gets up to like 300 quid. But this is so close to the price point of the original reference 780, yet it brings you all of these, higher quality components, better cooling, much better options. I'm not going to say it looks better, because I really am a big fan of the original cooler on the NVIDIA cards, but you don't mind paying an extra, say for argument's sake, 40, 50, 60 quid when you know that you're getting so much more, and you can see that you are getting better clocks than the reference ones anyway. This is outclocked the MSI gaming card, and even the stock clocks are significantly better than any of the other 780s that we've tested. But when you go on to thinking about the motherboards, where if you were to just look at performance, you wouldn't really be able to tell much between them because the CPU was the limitation. That's when the kind of price difference does kind of get a little bit confusing. Now, that's talking about CPU limitation. That's another thing you've all got to realise is the silicon lottery. I am kind of hoping that MSI are going to be within reason cherry picking the GPUs that they put on the card itself, because it doesn't matter how good the rest of the card is, you will always be limited by the core or the actual, you know, GK110 chip that is on your card. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't show you my result, you know, my overclock settings, was because yours could be wildly different. Yours could be significantly lower than mine, but yours could also be significantly better. You may win what we call the silicon lottery. I do need to make a dedicated video just on the fucking silicon lottery, don't I? But anyway, I was a little bit apprehensive about the 780 Lightning, but I'm happy to say that this is the best 780 that I have tested yet. Maybe not in aesthetics, because I'm not too keen on a few points about this, but in performance alone, it's absolutely wiped the floor with all the other cards that we've tested. So if you are looking to have a bit of fun with some 3D benchmark tests or something like that, then, you know, you're off to a winner. But I would have thought that the majority of people are going to buy this, stick it in one of the M-Power motherboards, maybe have a little bit of fun overclocking it, maybe not push it a lot, but they'll just go with it because it's part of the MSI overclocking branding. And good luck to you, because, you know, when the pricing is so close to the other ones, I've really not, you know, got a massive problem with it. So that is one of the reasons why it wholeheartedly won the Overclock 3D Gold Award. It's probably one of my favourite 780s to date. In fact, to be fair, there's only really the MSI gaming one and the Gigabyte Overclock one, and they all kind of have their own little, you know, one's wicked on performance. One actually looks really nice in the case, and then the other one just seems to, you know, is really good, you know, out the box performance. And I don't need to tell you which one. It's a weird one with stuff nowadays because there's so little between them. But the styling between them is where a lot of people are going with them. I wouldn't really worry about like the branding name so much anymore. I'm very much kind of heading down that. If you stick with the main four, you kind of end up going to the ones that really look the best and the best deals for you, really. But anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you now. It's taken me a little while to kind of wake up today after working all the way through the night, but we got there in the end. I will get this up on YouTube for you as quickly as possible. Don't forget to click the link underneath. I know the link down here has disappeared now, but if you hover over it, it may still be there near the award. I can never remember what side it's on. But anyway, yeah, click for the main review, go and have a look, photos, graphs, all that kind of fandango. I need to find me remote. But yes, MSI GTX780 Lightning, OC 3D Gold Award. I love it. Double TTL thumbs up, clicky, ding, 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 ding. Like it a lot. So yeah, for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you, out. Ding! Oh, timing was bad on that one.